give him your undivided attention.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, I was really excited to get asked to come and to come and speak to you guys, because I usually stay behind the camera, and now I get to be in front of people, and I'm not used to that. But everything that I've always done was been because somebody's helped me get to where I'm at now. And so I finally get the chance to kind of talk to you guys and help you get to where you want to be. So today we're going to talk about a whole lot of stuff. Again, I got all sorts of gear that's over there. We'll have breaks. I've got 45 minutes. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this stretch all 45 minutes. So you'll have time to come and look at some of the gear. I'll let you pick it up and hold it. I hope you have insurance if you drop it. But that way, if you got questions, you want to know what it does, I can give you all sorts of insights on that. But yeah, today we're going to talk about a lot of different things. I'll give you a little bit of a background on who I am, kind of how I've got to where I'm at. Some of the things that I've done, some things are pretty cool. I'll talk about all the not so cool things that I've done that allowed me to get to this point as well. We'll talk about different types of careers there are in photography. Just being a person with a camera is half the battle, but there's different levels and there's different positions that you can hold. And that's going to come into different types of pictures that you're going to take depending on your client. So we'll talk about different paths that you can take, starting with a high school student. After this, you're going to start going to college, right? Do you need to have a degree in photography, or do you want to get a degree in business, but then work as an intern or something like that as a photographer, right? So there's a lot of different paths that you can take there as well. Through all that, right? Again, going back to the basics, we're going to talk a little bit about camera stuff. We're not going to get too technical, but we'll talk about some basics that you need to learn. We'll also talk about just the business as a whole, right? It's one thing to be a photographer, but understanding the business on the other side is very key. We all want to make money doing this, right? If you don't understand the business, you can do a lot of this for free, never make a penny. Then if you start cooking equipment like that, you're going to be in debt well over your ears, right? So we want to make sure that you're coming profitable on the other side. Again, we'll go into a little bit of that gear a little bit. We'll talk about ways that you can gain experience. If any of you have ever applied for a job and they said, sorry, you just don't have enough experience, go get yourself some more experience and then come back. Well, how do you get experience if nobody's going to hire you, right? So these are things that you can do now. You have all the resources available to you. You've got classes that are like this. We absolutely did not have this when I was in high school at all. We barely had cell phones that would take pictures at that point, right? So you got all the resources that are available to you. So use that to your advantage. And then we'll talk about how you can network. It's all about who you know. It's not always what you know. It is all about who you know and who can get you to the right place. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is building that portfolio. You need to be able to have a resume when you apply for a job. In the media world, your portfolio is your resume. You can say, I've been at this event. You can say, I've taken these pictures. Cool. Let me see those pictures, right? You can say you took it, but if you don't have any really good content, how do I know you're really a good photographer? So we'll talk about that portfolio. Then I'll share some of my contact information. Again, I love helping not just students, anybody, right? So if you ever need any kind of help, if you ever have any kind of questions, go ahead and connect with me on Instagram. You can send me an email. Teachers, staff, if you ever need anything at your school, let me know. I'll come by and talk to your students or help you guys out as well. Always looking forward to that kind of stuff. So lots of good stuff. I know it sounds like a lot. I promise I'm not going to try to put you to sleep. If you've got questions as we're going through something, feel free to raise your hand. You don't have to wait till the end. Go ahead and ask your question right there on the spot, and that'll give us some stuff to talk about. So a little bit about me. When I was your age, I actually had no interest in being a photographer whatsoever. In fact, when I was in high school, I thought I was going to be a professional football player. I was about 110 pounds, 5'5". Quickly realized I was not going to be a football player, right? I had no clue what I wanted to do. So I actually joined the Army straight out of high school. What started off as just a simple, quick little 3-year contract turned into a 10-year career. And I stayed in the Army for 10 years. I was stationed pretty much all over the world. I started in Korea for a little while. Then I moved to Germany, went to Texas. I went to New York. And my job in the Army was a combat infantryman. So I did all the combat stuff. So before I was shooting cameras, I was shooting weapons and all sorts of fun stuff. During that time, I did do a 14-month deployment to Afghanistan. Did all that for a little while. Unfortunately, just I sustained some injuries while I was over there, and came across some PTSD. And I hit a really rough patch, right? Kind of decided that, you know what, it's time to get out of the military. Let's kind of move on with a normal life. And over that process, I got myself a service dog as just kind of like a coping mechanism, right? Something to have in that household, something that I was going to be able to care for and kind of do a quick rebound. In that process, that dog changed my entire career path and led me to where I am now, all because I took that dog to a dog park. While I was there, I purchased a cheap little camera from Best Buy. Didn't know anything about it. Shooting fully automatic, right? I didn't know how to use any of the settings. And there was an elderly lady at the dog park who said, "It's my dog's birthday. She doesn't have long left to live. Will you take pictures of my dog?" And I was like, okay, how do you say no to that, right? So I took pictures of her dog, and she gave me $100 for it. I kind of realized, like, all right, I can make some money doing this, right? I mean, that's half the price of the camera right there. So you know what I did for the next 4 or 5 weeks? I kept going back to that dog park. I was like, "You want pictures of your dog? $100. I'll take pictures of your dog." So I started trying to make some more money. And little by little, I started to realize, okay, shooting automatic is not super great, right? It's okay, but I'm getting some motion blur, and it's not as crisp and professional as I want it to be. Started getting on YouTube. I started learning all these different tips and tricks on how to use that camera. I started to catch that bug. Next thing you know, I was like, I don't need just dog parks. I've got friends. I got these girls I went to high school with who think they're models. Let's go somewhere. Let's try to take pictures, right? And so it started to grow. And it's amazing how many people love pictures of themselves, right? I don't look good in pictures, but people do like pictures of themselves. So I kind of just found that niche and started just to grow and grow and grow. And what turned into a challenge of trying to figure out how to use a camera turned into a hobby, which then turned into a passion, which then turned into my full-time career. And I started to grow and just get a little bit smarter with the tools all throughout the process. So that's kind of how I got to where I am. It's totally unintentional. But when you find something that you love, run with it, right? If you don't love the industry, you're probably not going to be in the right place. So that goes with anything in life, right? It's not just photography or videography. If you love something, run with it because you're going to be successful. And that's kind of where I got to where I'm at today. That whole snowballed into my career now where I work for Getty Images and I also work for ESPN. So those are my two big primary organizations that I work with. Most of you have probably gone online, found some pictures of sports, and we got that cool little watermark in the bottom right-hand corner that says Getty Images. And every time you want to post that picture, you just get that watermark everywhere. Copywriting, right? This is something that you're going to learn. We put that watermark there for a reason because it's too easy for you to go on there, screenshot a picture. Well, I, as a photographer, make no money off of that. If you go and purchase that photo, I now get a little percentage of that commission. That's how I put food on my table. So the next time that you go and screenshot a picture because you want to put it on your website or anything like that, just know you're taking away from somebody's paycheck. So that's why we put those watermarks on there. I didn't just fall right into Getty Images or ESPN. It all started with some of those clients that were on the right. Charlotte Sports Foundation were one of the first people that I really started to work with on a more professional level. My good friend Miller, I was hoping he was here because I was going to talk about him a little bit. I cannot tell you how many emails I sent him until he finally responded back to me and agreed just to meet for a coffee. Wasn't even asking him, hey, can I go shoot these events for you? I said, can we go get a coffee? He appreciated that because it showed a little bit more of a relationship aspect. We ended up meeting up, grabbing a coffee, and I just said, what do you guys need, right? You have all these events that are taking place in Charlotte. Where can I help you get content? Where can I do this? And I was pitched myself as a way, how can I help you? It built that relationship, and he was just kind of like, all right, we got these couple events. Let's have you come in, take some pictures. Now it was up to me to actually produce. I gave them some really good content. At least I think I gave them some really good content. And so now years later, they keep bringing me back for all these different events. I was also the team photographer for the Charleston River Dogs. You probably know who the Charlotte Knights are. This is a much smaller baseball team, but they're out in Charleston. But it's fun because you get to work for the team. You're now working personally for some of the players. They use this for their branding. In college, they got NIL deals and stuff like that now. So you get to do a little bit more of the behind-the-scenes type stuff with the team. And we're going to talk a little about that a little more. Anybody here may have gone to the Love and Life Music Festival or the Carolina Country Music Festival. I'm their lead photographer for those music festivals. So that is my outlet from sports. I primarily do sports, but I love music. It's a totally different world. It's a totally different skill set. So I decided to work for some music festivals, and I get to work with artists. And that kind of led into some future roles where Luke Combs called me personally and asked me to do his benefit concert that he did just about a year ago now for the Asheville hurricane relief. They called me up and asked me to be their photographer for that event. And it all started because Luke Combs went to the Carolina Country Music Festival. I was the festival photographer. They liked my content, and they called me up. So things just kind of snowball if you produce when you arrive on site. The Myrtle Beach Bowl game, I'm their lead photographer for that. I work with the Big South Conference and the Carolina Cup, and these are just some personal clients that I have on the side outside of Getty Images and ESPN. Getty Images is probably one of your more elite sports photography sides. They do also do, music and other things, but primarily sports is where I work with them. We travel the world, going to all sorts of different events. They have contracts with NASCAR, the NBA, the NFL, the MLS. And what that means is, doesn't mean there's not other photographers there, but when we have the contract with them, we get access that other people don't get. If you've ever been to a NASCAR race, there's a guy up there that waves the green flag and the checkered flag. Because we have the contract with them, I am the only photographer in the entire sport that is allowed in that flag stand during the green flag and during the checkered flag. So when you start looking for clients and who you want to work with, think about that too, right? What kind of access do you get that other people don't get? That's how you get that content that's unique to all the other photographers that are out there in a very oversaturated market. So again, those are just some clients that I've worked with. Some of my favorite ones, of course, are the Army-Navy game. I do all the March Madness stuff. The President's Cup came to Charlotte. So those are just some other tournaments. If anybody was here for the PFL World Championships, it's kind of like UFC's little brother. That was across the street at Bojangles Coliseum, so I got to work for them and cover that as well. So lots and lots of good stuff. One thing that I would say when you take away from this is don't work for just one person, right? If you go and work for just the Carolina Panthers, the only thing you're shooting is the Carolina Panthers. You're only shooting football. And there's nothing wrong with the Panthers, right? They are an absolutely amazing organization. I see Alex back there. But if you can freelance, you can diversify. Now you can go do the NBA. You can do the MLS, you can do the NFL. So you get to build that portfolio a little bit different. But we'll talk about what happens if you work specifically for a team here in just a second. So what paths do you have to take when you go in, right? I don't know if these are the necessarily most professional terms, but I kind of break it down into two different categories. You've got the editorial side, and then you've got the creative side. There's nothing wrong with either aspect of it. It's just a little bit different. So the editorial side, that's going to be your Getty Images. There's also going to be the AP Images, and there's Imagine Content, also known as USA Today. When you say editorial, what this means is I'm showing up to an event, a football game, a basketball game, a news conference, whatever the case may be. I take pictures, and it's all about speed. The second you get that picture, you send it into what we call the photo desk. They will take that, and now all your news outlets, WCCB is probably an individual that will use our photos. And next thing you know, they're putting it in their newspapers. They're putting it online. You're going to see it on Instagram when you're scrolling through. So it's all about speed to get that picture out. The key with these photos are they have to be as natural as possible, right? There's a lot of AI generation tools that are out there. There's a lot of filters that you can put on your lenses to make the picture look cool. These are going against the ethics of an editorial side, right? You want to keep it as natural as possible because you want to tell that true story. Now, on the other hand, you've got the creative side. This is where the industry, in my opinion, gets a little more fun because you get a little bit more freedom to do what you want. This is where you're typically going to work for the team. You might work for the league, a conference, or a venue. And this is where, like when I work with the Charlotte Sports Foundation, if I got a really good picture, but there's somebody's leg just kind of sticking through the frame of the picture, I could remove that leg to make sure they got a nice, clean picture. And then that picture will go on billboards, and they're going to use it for flyers and advertisements. So you can get a little bit more creative. Again, neither way is better or worse. It's just kind of different career paths, and different clients that you work with are going to ask for different things. I will say when you're working for the teams and the leagues, you get a little more access than maybe an editorial side will, right? Alex and his team, I know they're going to talk about all sorts of fun stuff that they get to do, but they get to interact with those players on a daily basis. They get to set up media days. If you go to college, right, you're going to have your football teams and your basketball teams. They're going to do the media days, and they're going to have the studio setups. You get to do a little bit more with that when you're working on the creative side with the team. Whereas when you're editorial, we do get to do some media days, but typically it's going to be a white backdrop, and it's typically just a headshot so we can use for news stories and stuff later. So it does change just a little bit. So as you're kind of going through this, kind of think about what you want to do, and I challenge you to work for both sides, right? Yeah, question.
So would editorial mean that you're kind of like signed to a company, where you strictly do what the company is like asking for instead of going your own route?
That's exactly it. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when you get to talk more about the business side of it. When you're working editorial, there is what you want to do as a creative photographer, but there's your client that hired you, right? There's what they want, and unfortunately, they're paying you for what they want, not necessarily what you want to take as a photographer, right? So you do have to work a little bit more towards that, and we'll talk about some things that they look for sure. Awesome. All right. Yeah, as we're going through this, I threw in just some of the pictures that I've taken over the years. I've done some creative media days. The one on the left is actually just a couple weeks ago when Shadir was here. Some of you might have seen the Nike advertisement, but that was one of the pictures that they've used. But now we're going to talk about how to get started into the industry, right? So the first thing that you need to know is really just the basics. There's so much out there that you can do with a camera. But if you don't understand the basics, you're going to struggle. So we're going to talk a little bit about the basics. And then we're going to talk a little more in depth about the business, right? How do you make that money? How do you land these jobs? We'll talk about some of the gear that we've got, how you can gain experience today. And then, of course, we'll end that part with networking. So understanding the basics. So I know there was quite a few of you that talked about photography. Do any of you know what the exposure triangle is? Has anybody ever heard of that? You have? You don't know what it is? Yeah. You probably use it and you don't even know it. Okay. So on your camera, you got at least 3 main settings that you're going to work with when you're taking pictures, right? You've got your ISO, you've got your shutter speed, you've got your aperture. Do those 3 terms mean anything to anybody? Does it make sense? All right. Who can tell me what the ISO is? What you got? That's exactly it, right? So to keep it on a non-technical side, right? That's what turns the brightness up or down in your photos. So you may be working at a school somewhere. Some of you have probably shot your high school basketball team, and the lighting in there is probably not super great, right? Your pictures are coming up really orange. It's really dark and grungy. You can use your ISO. You can turn that up. The higher the number, the brighter your picture is going to get. And we're going to come back to that in a few minutes. We've got your shutter speed. Who knows what the shutter speed does? What you got?
How wide your lens opens up to let in light. So if you have a high shutter speed, then you might have like a blurry energy. So if you do fast sports, you'll be able to catch those freeze time. And if you have a slower shutter speed, then you can have like a blurry background and have like
That's exactly it. Yep. So your shutter speed basically will freeze the action, or it's going to pick up motion blur. So you'll look at the picture in the background, right? You'll see that the car is perfectly in frame, but everything around it is just kind of blurred, right? What I used in this picture is called a panning motion. So I set my shutter speed. I was probably at like 1/20th of a second. So it was really, really, really slow. And as the car came by, I panned my camera right at the same speed as that car. And what that does is it keeps the car perfectly in frame, but everything around it just flies by, and that's what causes that blur. So you're going to use that shutter speed. Now, how does that shutter speed interact with your ISO? When you have your shutter speed turned really up, so like 1/2000th of a second, your shutter's going a lot faster. It's allowing less light into your camera. So if you bump that ISO all the way up, but your shutter speed is turned all the way up, you're going to have a little bit less light coming in because your shutter speed is going so fast. So now you may have to turn your ISO up just a little bit more to compensate for the faster shutter speed. Whereas if you turn your shutter speed all the way down to, say, 1/100th of a second, you're going to have to turn your shutter speed, or you're going to have to turn your ISO down to compensate because more light is able to come in. So that's how 2 of those things will come into play. The last one is your aperture. Who knows what your aperture is, or your f-stop? Anybody heard of that? I bet you use this all the time and you don't even realize it. Who has an iPhone? When you take a picture, do you ever put it on portrait mode? Have you ever noticed that when you put it on portrait mode, your subject is nice and crisp, but then everything around it is all blurred? That's your f-stop. That's called your aperture. So what it does is, again, it'll either open or close the camera, so it allows more light or less light, but it also controls your depth of field. So if I were to take a picture of you and I put my f-stop at, say, f2.8, you're going to be perfectly in focus, and everything around in the background behind you is going to be super blurry. So if I go backwards for a second, you'll notice, see how he is perfectly in focus, but then everything behind him is super blurry? It kind of makes that subject pop out. That's because I set my f-stop down to this was probably at about 2.8. Now, I could bump that f-stop up, right? I could go all the way to f12. What's going to happen is he'll be in focus, but then all the people sitting in the stands behind him will also be in focus. And what that will do is it's going to create a really busy image, because now as a viewer, your eye is not only looking at him, it's looking at the people, it's looking at the flag stand, and it makes it for a really messy photo. So there's different reasons why you may want a bigger f-stop or a smaller f-stop. Now, with that f-stop, if you shoot at 2.8, we call that wide open. That means it opens it up all the way, and it allows more light into your camera. If you start to crank that down to, like, say, f12, f16, it's allowing less light into your camera. So what do you have to do? Either slow down your shutter speed a little bit to now get a little more light in there, or crank up that ISO. And that's where you start to learn your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO. Those three things make up your exposure triangle, right? When you start to balance those three together, that's what provides your best photo. So when you're taking your camera and you put it on auto, it's using that exposure triangle for you. But when you start to put it on manual and it's up to you to adjust those settings, you can do some really unique things with that camera. So, yeah.
Like, I know you said that, like, you would do that with your camera, but could you also do that after? Like, could you edit the photo so it looked like that? In the event that you thought it was a really, really good shot, right?
Yeah.
But you're like, man, there's too many people in the background. I need to blur them.
So the answer is yes and no. So you can use things like Lightroom and Photoshop, and you can use some of these tools out there to try to add some extra blur to your photo. That kind of goes back to the editorial side. If you're doing all this after the fact, that's kind of quote unquote unethical, because you're kind of adding things that were not already there. So if you do it in camera, it's now a little more ethical and it was more natural. So, but if you're on the creative side, you can do a lot of that extra stuff. You can add blur, you can do all sorts of stuff in post-process afterwards. Yep. Again, it's more, I guess, more or less just knowing what your client wants and what you're allowed to do. Yeah.
First, pause real quick. So it sounds like he just said some things that you may not have known. It sounds like you have your cameras in front of you. So afterwards, if you want to ask him to show you where that is on your camera and practice those speeds, we'll do that afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So those are the basics. Your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO. Those are the three things that's going to make up the quality of your photo. All right. So now this is the next big piece, right? This is the business. It takes one thing to be a good photographer, right? You know your camera, you take some really good photos, but we're all in it to make a little bit of money, right? At least if you're going into the career aspect of it. There are so many photographers that will go out there and say, man, I just want to build my portfolio. I just want to get some cool content for my Instagram. I'm going to show up for free. I'll do whatever you want. That is totally against the business of photography. And I'm going to come back to that free piece in just a second. But kind of to the question earlier, right? What does your client need? It is all about what your client needs. They are the one that is paying you to be there. You could get the most amazing pictures for your Instagram, but if it's not what the client needs, they're not going to hire you to bring you back. So you want to make sure that you are meeting their deliverables. How quickly do they need that? When I am shooting some big football games or basketball games, when I'm working for ESPN, they need those pictures ASAP. Have you ever seen, Cam Newton scored a touchdown? 2 seconds later, you go on Instagram and there's already a picture there. Well, how did that picture get there? So what we'll use is I'll have a little Wi-Fi, a little Wi-Fi hotspot. I'll keep that in my pocket, plug it into my camera. The second that I take that picture, I press a button, sends that camera straight to our photo desk up in New York. There's somebody sitting there at their computer. They edit it really quick, throw it onto the internet for the world to grab, Next thing you know, 30 seconds later after that touchdown, it is all over the internet, and that's where people can use. So it's all about speed. If you get some really great photos of a basketball game, but you don't deliver it to your athletic director or the communications department until a week later, there's already been 2 basketball games since then, right? It doesn't matter anymore. So it's all about speed. And a lot of times that's what your clients are looking for, is that work ethic right there. Another thing that I really, take serious is the etiquette, right? If you've ever been to a football game and you just see kids out there on the sideline and they're just sitting down, they're not paying attention, they're on their cell phone, that is not proper etiquette. Next thing you know, you could get hurt, you could get somebody else hurt, you could have me out there who's trying to make a living, and here you are just standing there texting on your cell phone and you block one of my shots and now I missed that touchdown. So there's some etiquette behind it as well, right? Dress professional, right? Dress like you are there to work. You're not going to the club afterwards, right? These are things that people do take seriously because that's how you hire them. The Charlotte Sports Foundation hired me to coach a basketball game. I'm out there in swim trunks and flip-flops. That is not a good example of who they are as an organization, right? They're not going to want me sitting on national television courtside at a basketball game at the Jumpman Invitational, right? So they're going to want to make sure that I'm representing them as an organization as well. So think about that, because while you may be behind camera, you're going to be in the spotlight. The amount of times that my mom has called me and said, I saw you on TV at the Super Bowl, or I saw this, I saw that. You're going to be on TV at some point, right? So dress professional and present yourself accordingly. Be aware of your surroundings too, right? You're not always going to be the most professional photographer that is going to be there, but there are other professional photographers that are working. Can't tell you how many media centers I work in, especially at college sports. Those college students, those interns, they'll come in. Well, their job is done. They don't have super strict deliverables. They're in there eating pizza, they're joking, they're laughing, and here I am trying to work, and it is a pain, right? If that kid were ever to come to me and ask me for a job, my first impression of them is, well, you were so unprofessional at this game. Why would I hire you to come work for me when I know that's how you're going to act, right? So think about that when you're on site at these events. We'll talk about networking a little bit later. It's all about who you know type industry. And if you build a bad reputation, you will never make it in the industry because it's a small world. Everybody knows everybody in this type of world. Do your research, right? Going back to what that client wants. Who are you shooting for? Is it a football game? Is it a basketball game? If it's college, which players have the biggest NIL deals? Well, their clients, right, are going to want more of those pictures. Who's about to break a record? Those are the pictures that you're going to want. If you are taking pictures of a third string player that never gets to see the field and has never made any kind of news, that kid may like that picture, but your clients are never going to use that picture anywhere, right? So do your research in advance, and that'll help you be a little more successful at the end of the day. Be trustworthy as well, right? When you are talking to individuals and you're asking them really permission to go work for them, a lot of times they will hire you more because you are trustworthy than you are skillful, right? You can be a good photographer, but if I can't trust you to do the right things, I'm not going to hire you. I would rather take semi-mediocre content, but know that you're representing our organization accordingly. There are venues where you cannot go certain places. You cannot do certain things. Depending on your access, you have to stay behind a rope. Everybody wants that perfect shot, but you've got to obey by the rules. And if you are trying to go behind the scenes and do certain things, you're going to get caught and you will not get hired again. So think about that, when you're working with some of your clients. To kind of go move through this a little bit more, build relationships. Charlotte Sports Foundation was never just a business to me. They're all friends, right? I talk to them all the time. Miller and I go get lunch all the time. We'll go with Will and we'll get lunch. They became more friends, and those are relationships. I am the first person that they think of when things like this come up because we are friends. If they were just somebody that I sent an invoice to after an event, okay, now we're just a strictly business relationship, right? And they probably wouldn't have asked me to come today because I would have said, well, how much are you paying me, right? But because we're friends, here for free, and that's how more work will come down the road. So think about it more from a relationship aspect. Respect other photographers, all right? Again, you're not the only one that's there. Know kind of your role. I will never tell you to not try to get the best shot. But when you've got the professional Getty Images or you've got the venue photographer who's trying to get that trophy presentation shot, and you're just kind of there shooting for yourself, give some of those more legacy photographers kind of the leeway, just because they are there on assignment. This is how they put food on their table. Again, if you're there by yourself, you're taking away from somebody else's work. Again, I'm not going to tell you to not try to get the best shot, right? Because that's how you get that portfolio. Just be kind of cognizant of your surroundings and who you're with. Protect yourself. Funny story with this, I shot a bowl game for ESPN, and it was the famous Toastery Bowl over at UNC Charlotte. And their only requirement, the main thing that they wanted was, instead of a Gatorade bath at the end, they had a whole bunch of toast in a Gatorade cooler. And the only shot that they really wanted was the winning coach. You know, when they dumped the Gatorade on them, they wanted the toast going over the coach, and that's what they wanted. Well, Western Kentucky won by a walk-off field goal at the very end. The coach got super excited and just threw his radio. Little radio box. Hit me right square in the middle of the forehead. Knocked me out cold. They had to take me off the field, rush me to the hospital. I had to get stitches and all sorts of stuff. And it became a whole legal thing, right? But it is a dangerous world that's out there. So pay attention to what's around you. Things can happen. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention, not just to yourself, but to your equipment. If I'm shooting a basketball game, LeBron James comes flying in, does a layup, right? And then he kind of runs off to the side. Well, I'm sitting right there baseline. If he steps on my ankle, trips, falls, and breaks his ankle, he is way more valuable than I am. If I ruin his career, you know what that does to me? He could sue me. A lot of things can happen. So you need to make sure you're protecting yourself through insurance and some other things as well. That equipment right there is probably close to $65,000 worth of equipment. I don't necessarily have money just to go and replace a $10,000 lens, right? So protect yourself as well. You will thank yourself later. The last thing is stay hungry. I told you, Miller, I emailed him probably 15 times just asking him to go get coffee, right? If I stopped after that first email and he never responded, I would never work with Charlotte Sports Foundation. I'm not going to say be annoying, right? I might have pushed that line of being annoying a little bit, but it resulted in a job. Stay persistent, stay hungry, and just keep working. You're going to get told no, especially in the beginning. I still get told no now, right? So just keep working, and you'll eventually get there. So again, when you stop having fun, it becomes more work. Maybe time for you to start finding a new career, right? Okay, going into the gear, just some things that you're going to think about. My number one rule is you do not need the most expensive equipment to be a professional photographer. Now, don't go buy something for $5 at a thrift shop, right? But you do not need, a $15,000 camera to become a professional photographer. I started with a Rebel T7i out of Best Buy. I think it cost me like $400 because I bought it on Black Friday. That's what got my career started. I upgraded to a 90D. I shoot Canon. I don't know if any of you use Sony or Nikon. All those brands are great. One thing I will tell you, when you start to spend money, invest in your lens. The lens is really where you're going to make your money. Cameras, in my opinion, are kind of like cell phones. Every year, a new cell phone comes out. Every year, a new camera body comes out. So if you go and spend $7,000 on a new camera body, next year, the newest camera comes out, and you're like, oh, well, now I want that camera. Next thing you know, you are spending way more money than you are making at the end of the year. I can't tell you how much at the end of my first year, second year, I would start divvying up my numbers. Oh, wow, okay, I made $10,000 this year. Oh, I spent $20,000 in equipment, right? The goal is to make money, not to lose it. So you want to think about the equipment that you're buying. One thing I do see a lot of photographers that they'll buy is when you're buying a cell phone, right? One day you're with AT&T, but now T-Mobile's prices went down a little bit, so you switched to T-Mobile. Now you're going to Verizon. You're kind of bouncing around back and forth. Camera gear is a little bit more of an investment, right? If you buy Canon, stick with Canon. You don't want to go and spend thousands of dollars on Nikon gear, and then Canon releases a new lens. So now you want to go buy that lens. They don't always all interact, right? So you don't want to start with one brand, switch to another brand, switch to another brand. Start with one, think long-term, where do you want to go, and kind of stick with that brand, because that's how you'll start to acquire more and more gear, and then you'll have more options later on down the road. You can rent before you buy. There are a lot of great camera stores local. There's Biggs Camera, Cardinal Camera. These are your local stores. Go and rent a lens. For $100, you can have it for a day or two. Go shoot that football game. Go shoot that basketball game. If you love it, Cool. Now maybe I'll go buy it. If you don't love it, at least you didn't buy it. You only spent $100 and you can return it, right? If you only do an event once a month, maybe cheaper for you to rent it once a month rather than go and spend $10,000 on certain types of equipment. The only other thing I will tell you, make sure you know how to use the equipment before you go and rent it. You might rent it and it doesn't work out for you, but it's not equipment error, it's user error, right? Because you don't know how to use it. So you're like, this thing sucks, I don't know how to use it. Well, it's not the lens's fault, it's not the camera's fault, it's your fault, right? So learn how to use the equipment before you start spending all this money. Again, I'm all about making an extra dollar. So what we want you to do is at the end of the year, make that money. Don't go and spend it, and now you're going to have a loss. Think about some of the other equipment outside of your camera gear, right? You've got computers. There's different software programs that you're going to need, like Adobe, right? They got student programs where you can buy, Photoshop and Lightroom and things like that. These are other expenses that you're going to need to take on to effectively do your job. And of course, protect your gear. Buy the camera cases, buy the pads, buy the equipment. Unless you've got a ton of money laying around, maybe you just won that $1.8 billion lottery. I don't know, but I can't just let that stuff break and then just buy another one, right? So you want to make sure you're protecting it. Okay, what can you do today to gain experience? Again, I mentioned earlier, right? So many employers will say, well, you need experience. Go get some experience and then come back and talk to us. But if everybody says that, how do you ever gain that experience? Your high school has sports. You can show up and take pictures. Now, don't just walk onto the sideline and start taking pictures, right? Talk to that athletic director, talk to the communications director, get the proper credentialed access to get there. 9 times out of 10, especially if you've got programs like that, if you're here today, I'm pretty sure they're going to grant you access to get certain things. Work with the school. What do they want, right? These are things that you're going to want to pay attention when you're there. Sure, you're shooting for your portfolio, but if the school is asking you to be there, ask them what they want. That's that client, worker relationship. Get those fan photos. Get the celebration touchdown. Take pictures of the concession stand. You never know what they might use for marketing later down the road, and it's going to be all your photos that they're going to use. So use what you've got available to you. The one thing I will always mention, if you can shoot a high school football game or a high school basketball game, you can shoot anywhere. Everybody wants to say, well, I need to go to Bank of America Stadium and I need to shoot the Carolina Panthers. I will tell you the easiest sport I have ever shot is the Carolina Panthers. One, they're not the most exciting team to shoot anyways. But two, right, they've got the biggest stadium. They've got the best lighting. It is an amazing venue. Sorry, Alex. But they've got the best lighting, right? They've got a massive sideline. There's limited media, so you don't have a lot of people in your way. It is an easy place to shoot. Sure, you're going to get great content, but just because Christian McCaffrey is in your photo doesn't make you an amazing photographer. It's the quality of your photo that makes you a great photographer. Where's the lighting the worst? High school sports, right? Nowadays, they're actually getting pretty good. But with those gyms, they'll have like an orange tint to it. Sometimes you'll have some dark spots on a high school field. If you can learn to shoot there, you can shoot anywhere. So focus on that first. And fortunately for you, that's the easiest thing that you have access to is those high school fields. So take full advantage of what you've got available to you. Don't shoot just sports. I started off doing only sports. And a couple of things that I realized was I used the same settings for sports all the time. The second that I started shooting music, my camera settings completely changed. There's flashing lights. It's a really dark venue. Things changed. So I had to relearn how to be a photographer because I'm shooting something completely different. Go do corporate photography. If there's a new restaurant that's opening up, go ask and see if you can take some marketing photos for them. Your style photography and your attention to detail is totally different. But when you get really good at that, you can take that new learned skill and apply it back to football. Now you're looking at football at a totally different sport. So the more you diversify your portfolio, the much better you're going to become. Practice your workflow. I talked about how I have to get photos in immediately, right? That's a skill in itself. How can you do that? You have to run through that battle rhythm every single day. The better you get at it, the more efficient you'll be, the happier your clients are going to be. If you're not practicing on sending in photos right away, when push comes to shove and you get that killer shot, but it takes you 2 days to get that photo in, you just lost what could have been a really big sale. So start working on those skills every single day. And then work on editing. Taking the photo out of your camera is one thing. A lot of people will ruin all their content because they have a special way they edit photos. This is kind of a touchy subject because I'm not going to tell Picasso how to paint, right? He had his own skill set. Some people loved it. Some people hated it, but he found what worked for him. So editing is kind of your own special touch. But again, know who your client is. I heard some of you kind of talk about graphic design, right? So when you're editing your photo, do you want to put the subject maybe on the right third? So that way there's all this dead space on the left side. So that way your graphic design skills can come into play and you can put graphics and schedules and things like that. So think big picture. What is this content going to be used for before you just start editing it however you want? So start to think about that as well. Any questions about the experience side of things and what you can do today?
Well, I'll ask you guys a question. Where are you shooting now? Where are you shooting now? What events do you shoot? Football? Sage, we're just gonna go down.
Now I think high school I'll do like headshots and also for sports as well.
Headshot sports?
Guaranteed I do soccer, basketball, and football.
Okay.
I also do football, volleyball, and soccer.
This is my first year trying to take pictures like for my school, but I take pictures like everywhere.
Nice.
Cool. Perfect.
I'm also just starting with photography, and I'm trying to go to as many games and stuff as I can, and I want to get like action shots.
Okay, so now we got a lot of people back here that you got questions to ask. When you pull out those cameras, they'll be able to show you how to shoot volleyball in that gym, how to shoot at those Friday night lights when it's only, 3 pockets that have light. So make sure before you leave here, you ask these people in the room, hey, how do I do this? How do I get this setting? How do I brighten up the gym and not make it look orange? And show them, ask them to show you on your camera. That way you can go practice. And then also, now let's think about, well, where else can I shoot? So you got some advisors in the room, they may have some needs, you know what I mean? It's hard, from the advisors, okay, I need this happen, I need this happen. See if you can help them. Hey, can I come to the PTA meeting? I don't know. Can I help you get some more content for that? What are the opportunities in the school outside of athletics that you can practice and work on that may help your advisors in your school? So be thinking of that too. You hear something on the announcements about an event going on, maybe it's a dance, a student-led event. Y'all in the room. If the dance is in the gym, you shoot in the gym all the time. Sound like you need to be the photographer. So, think about all those opportunities that are, in your presence right now to build that portfolio and how you're going to accomplish that. And come up to your advisor and ask them, hey, how can I help? And I guarantee you, they're probably not going to tell you no. And if they do, oh well, ask again.
Yep. That's it. And it's a rite of passage too, right? Don't always just expect, well, you're going to get the best game and this is your first game of the season. You're going to have to do some other things. I can't tell you how many cocktail hours and social networking sessions I've been to and press conferences and all the things that are not as exciting. That's still content that's needed. But because I started doing all those, they're like, yeah, okay, now we'll give you a football game. Okay, now we'll give you this. Now we'll give you that. So it's kind of a rite of passage. You'll have to work your way up there. Don't just think it all just comes, straight down from the top. Did you have a question?
Yeah, at the beginning, it was like you have realized that you can take pictures of not just people's dogs, but like the people in general. And you asked your friends, and they wanted pictures. Did you use them to start promoting your pictures, or did you tell them to pay for them?
Yeah. So it kind of just depends, right? So number one, if you're taking pictures with people, you need to make sure you have permission just to put their picture out there on the internet and things like some people like it, some people don't. But yeah, you start to kind of build a portfolio. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And, for you guys right now, social media is going to be your best portfolio. Putting it on Instagram, if you're doing video, create those TikToks, things like that. That's going to get you recognized. But yeah, so I definitely recommend, you use that as promotion. But when we get to the portfolio piece, I'm going to talk about using only your best work. Just because you took pictures doesn't mean that everybody needs to see it. What I want to know is what were your best shots, because that's what I'm going to think of you by, right? So we'll talk about that in a minute.
Can I interject for just a second?
Go for it.
I feel like you are just giving away so many great nuggets, and we just need some more paper. I'm so sorry to be like this.
That's a good thing. I'll
This is
take
the
it.
educator in me coming out, right?
Yeah.
I encourage you guys to write down as much, and I know in the moment we're eating it all up, but it would be nice that once we leave here, we can refer back to the iOS. Oh, he said this is what this is, you know, so.
Sure.
I think just a little bit of paper would be helpful.
I think Leah went.
Can we get, okay, and I'll be happy to support so that we can take notes and all that fun stuff.
So I guess while we're waiting, have you guys looked at programs like moving on to college and things like that? Have you guys thought about maybe what you want to do after high school and how you could kind of continue this? Does anybody have any plans? What have you looked at?
Well, when I go to college, my dream is to go to Howard, probably double major in marketing and
Oh.
communications.
Yeah.
And then after like a dream career, I really want to be a WNBA marketing director.
Okay.
Just anything I can broadcast, like interviewing the players.
Yeah.
Doing, like I said, I specialize more in videography because I like to edit, film, and music.
Okay.
So I can do like any mixtapes for like the WNBA. I can do
Yeah.
that, but I try to be as versatile as possible. So I'll do like if my advisor or a teacher they pull me for events at churches.
Sure.
Headshots of friends, and your first day of senior year pictures.
There you go.
Like just anything that I do, I try to be as versatile as I can.
That's awesome. And I love that versatility, right? Because I didn't go to college for photography, right? I'm not going to say that you have to go to college and you have to major in photography, but I'm not saying you don't have to either. I didn't, and I made it as far as I have, and I learned from YouTube, right? YouTube and the dog park. That's how I learned where I got to where I'm at today. I did go to college for business, and I learned marketing. So that taught me a lot of the businessy side, which in my opinion, the business side is what makes you the money, right? Your creative side is what gets you the content, but the business side is what makes you money. So think about that when you're in college too, right? There was a young girl that I was working with. She was devastated because she wanted to go to the University of South Carolina because they got a big athletics program, and she did not get accepted, and she wanted to do photography for their athletics. What she has learned was she actually ended up going to App State, smaller school, still a good athletics program, but they have less content, creative personnel that's over there. She went to South Carolina, she probably would have gotten stuck with just the women's soccer team or something very small, and that's all she had access to. Because she's now at a smaller school, she shoots every sport. She's doing the student newspaper. She's getting access to everything. So don't just let one massive school, crush your dreams. You can do this pretty much anywhere. Everybody wants content these days. So for sure. Yeah. Well, while they were kind of passing that out, we'll talk about networking a little bit. It's all about knowing people, right? There's always going to be somebody who's been there, done that, and is kind of already at the top of their game within the career. Those are the ones that hire people, and they need to know who you are in order to hire you. The way I got in with Getty Images, I was working with a smaller outlet called Icon Sportswire, a very small group. They were probably a type of group where you use it for access, but you don't make any kind of money, right? I sat next to a guy from Getty Images. I looked him up. I found his name. I started talking to him. We actually became friends. Lo and behold, he had a family emergency. He needed an NBA game covered. Because I built a good relationship with him, he's like, can you help us out? Will you go cover that basketball game? That was my foot in the door. Now that I'm at the basketball game, I can't mess it up, right? This is my one shot to work for these guys. I had one of the best games of my entire photography career shooting for Getty Images. Everything just went flawless. Great photos. I got them in really quick. A couple photos made me a ton of money off of it, but he appreciated it. That resonated with those guys. Ever since then, I have never gone back to shoot for Icon Sportswear. I have stayed with Getty Images. From there, ESPN saw some of my content. They needed some help, brought me in. It was all because I'm sitting at this tennis tournament. Getty's right next to me, and I just started talking to him. We got talking about mountain biking. I don't know a single thing about mountain biking, but that's what he likes, so that's what I was talking to him about, right? It's all about building that relationship. So you want to make sure that you're reaching out and talking to people. If you DM me, ask me questions. I will give you the answers. Not every photographer out there is like that. You'll have some of your old heads that have been doing this for 20, 30 years. They're not as friendly as some of the photographers should be. So don't be that person. I'll challenge you that as well. As you become more professional in your career, remember where you came from. Remember you sitting in this chair today. There's going to be students down the road who are going to want to listen to you speak, right? Make sure you're handing it back down to them and helping them out. But again, you need to be a person. If you are, kind of hidden in the back corner, you're not reaching out and you're not talking to people, you're not DMing people, you're not sending emails, nobody's going to really know that you exist. You might have 5,000 followers on Instagram, but if you're not actually reaching people, nobody's ever going to talk to you, right? You have to reach out. You have to make sure that you are more than just an Instagram handle, and that's how you'll end up growing within the industry. Ask questions, right? Lose the ego for a little bit, right? You may think that you are a great photographer. You guys probably know things that I don't know. I've tried creating TikToks for like day in the life videos, and I can't figure out how to save my life. You could probably teach me things, right? So make sure that you are kind of losing that ego and just always understand that you are always going to be a student of the industry and continue to learn and grow. To this day, I'll see something that, the photographers from the Panthers will do, and I'll see from the NBA side what they'll do. And I'm like, how did you do that? That is so cool. Can you teach me that? I want to learn because I want to be the best that I can be. It's all about asking questions. So never hesitate to ask some questions. And that goes all the way back to your portfolio. Your resume is your portfolio. Again, if you put on a piece of paper, oh, I've been at the Panthers, I've been at the Hornets, I've done this, I've done that. Cool. You were there. What did you do while you were there? Let me see that content. I want to know that you were a good photographer. So you have to put it into a portfolio. There's a couple things there. When I hire people to come help me for certain events, I want to see your work. When I open up your portfolio, I don't want to see 30,000 photos from every single sporting event, every single picture you've ever taken. I want to see your 10, 15, maybe 20 tops. I want to see your best photos. You're going to go to a football game, pick out your best photo from that football game. I don't need all your photos. I want to know your best photo. Put that inside there. And eventually, you're going to keep that kind of rotating. As you get bigger and better, your portfolio is going to look weaker and weaker. So you want to put new content in there, right? My portfolio from 2 years ago, not a single one of those photos are in my portfolio right now because as I've gotten bigger and better, I've taken bigger and better pictures. I need to keep that fresh. I talked about Luke Combs and how he hired me for his Asheville benefit thing. David Bergman is his personal photographer. If you've never heard of him, look him up. He is a world-renowned photographer, awards, and everything else that you can imagine. He calls me personally and goes, hey, man, we need you to do this event. Can you send me your portfolio? So I sent him my portfolio. In my portfolio, I mentioned that I was a photographer. I've been working for about a year. I've been doing this. I live in South Carolina. I had not updated that thing forever. He goes, you're pretty good for only shooting for a year. And I had to go back and say, actually, I've been working for about 6 or 7 years. And so everything that he was looking at was completely misleading. So you need to make sure you keep that up to date. If I had just sent him the right stuff at the beginning, there would have been no issues, right? So you never know who is going to be looking at your content and when. So make sure you're putting your stuff in your portfolio. Keep it diverse, right? If you shot a football game and you've got an awesome picture, put that in there, but I don't need 14 more pictures that look exactly the same. You got the one, I got it, I know you're good at it. Now go to basketball, throw in some basketball content. Think about telling a story as well. If you're doing editorial, you have to tell a story. Just because somebody scored a touchdown doesn't mean that's the story of the game. That guy might have scored a touchdown, but that team might have also gotten blown out by 30 points, right? The story is not the guy scoring the touchdown. The story is they got blown out by 30 points. You're probably going to have guys that are frustrated and you got some great facial reactions. You got fans that are sitting like this. Those are the type of photos that tell a story, right? So those are types of things that you're going to want depending on who your clients are. So you're just going to want to think about that when you're building a portfolio. Keep your portfolio readily accessible. Instagram is a great place, but you're going to post on there frequently. I'm not scrolling all the way through your Instagram to see all of your photos. I'll look through it to get a good variety, but you need to create some sort of free website where you just throw on your contact information, 10 photos. That way, if you send somebody an email, throw the link in your email. So many times I'll see photographers that say, hey, I want to come work for you. I'll send you my portfolio upon your request. Absolutely not. I'm not going to reach back out to you and ask for your portfolio. put your portfolio in that email. Say, hey, here's my portfolio. Take a look at it. Let me know what you think. I'd love to work with you. Take out that extra email, right? So that'll kind of save you with some of that communication piece.
What's a good website for that?
Oof. There's a lot of different ones. It really just depends on how much you want to pay for. I don't remember the server that I use. I can see what I use, but it's super. I'm not techie on that side of both the websites. It's super easy. It's basically just some templates where you just import things, and I'll get you what that site is. I'll let you know.
Canva may have some, it's kind of basic, but to start off with it, it's free. You can drop in some pictures, kind of created to look more like your style or whatnot.
Yeah.
But what, in a nutshell, what I just heard from him is to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. You're going to miss an opportunity if you are not ready. So
That's
raise
exactly
your
it.
hand if you have a portfolio. All right, so by the end of this week, we need to have portfolios, right? I know some of us are getting started, but this is where you are now starting to build it. You know, don't be ashamed if it's not good, but you have to get into that practice of, taking care of your craft. You got to get into that practice of building that portfolio. That's going to show your passion and your drive. So if hey, somebody dropped out, I need help, send me your portfolio. Well, if you don't have one, you just missed the opportunity.
Yeah.
So you got to have that on site because things happen. There's so many times and opportunities that come up, unexpectedly, and you got to be able to be ready and show your work so that you can get that opportunity. So somebody right now is building their portfolio, so they may get an opportunity before you. You got to beat them to the punch. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start making those portfolios. Like I said, Canva, I think is one that's very basic that you can kind of, put something into. But David said there's some other ones that, some other softwares, and I know y'all are so tech savvy and TikToky. I know y'all probably already know something to where it can be a good portfolio. Even social media, if that's the only opportunity or platform that you have right now, use it. Use what your resources that you have. If you don't have the money or the funds, you do have some type of resource or medium that you can use. So get active. So, he talked about having coffee with somebody. Okay, well, here's my link. Boom. It may not be an opportunity tomorrow. It may be an opportunity in 6 months, but you are in front of that person. You have shown them your work, and now you are a thought about them. But if you don't have that, they're going to forget you.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 12 years, and my current resume and portfolio is a Canva template. Graphic design is not my ministry by any means, so get in where you fit in.
That's it. Find some inspiration too, right? Start finding some of those big time photographers. Jared Tilton is one of our Getty photographers. He kind of runs the Southeast area, but he's been my role model. He's been my mentor for a very long time. Everything I try to do is like him. It's gotten to the point where he was like, stop copying me, right? Because I want to be like him. I want to be that guy. Find people that are out there that's like that. Alex Herco is from the Panthers. He's got an incredible portfolio. He's got some awesome stuff, right? Start finding these people that are out there that you want to be like and start looking at their photos. Look at, okay, when this running back was going this way, how was he positioned on the field? Where was he when he got that photo? You want to look that far into it from the lens of a photographer. And those are certain things that you can recreate on your end. If it's a football game, do you want to stay ahead of the action so that the running back's coming right at you? But is your team on defense? Maybe you want to be backwards behind the play of action so that way you got the defenders that are coming at you. So these are things that you'll want to think about when you're on the field shooting. But otherwise, just to kind of wrap up, I really appreciate your questions and attention. That QR code is my Instagram, so you're welcome to scan the QR code and connect with me if you want to. But are there any questions? Is there anything that you want to know literally about anything? I'll tell you whatever you want. Yeah.
What was in the last 3 to 5 years, what was the biggest mistake you made, and then how'd you go about it? Like, if, let's say you took the wrong shot, and not counting when you got knocked out, that wasn't your fault. But let's say you took the wrong shot, or you sent it to the wrong place, or et cetera, and how'd you go about that?
Follow-up, you still got that shot, though, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. I actually have. So when I got knocked out, I was taking pictures of the coaches celebrating, and I have pictures of the battery coming towards my head. And that's how I won the lawsuit was because I have all the pictures of the batteries coming right at me. And fortunately, it was kind of it was not like a wrong time. They were doing anything wrong. So there was no big deal out of it. And actually, when I emailed the school to let them know what happened, I specifically said, hey, look, nobody did anything wrong. I don't want anybody to get in trouble. Just pay my medical bills. That was pretty much all I asked for. They appreciated it. They sent me a whole school kit with jerseys and like all sorts of stuff. So again, I could have gone to the legal route. I could have gone to lawyers, right? But how you conduct yourself is really important. I guarantee you Western Kentucky will hire me for any job that I want for the foreseeable future, right? So think about that. But to your question, some of the mistakes that I've made, one of the biggest things that I do, and I don't know why, I will arrive on site and I will realize my batteries are still on my charger back in my garage at home. Literally about, 2 weeks ago, I showed up for a Charlotte FC game. Got there all set, ready to go. My batteries are at home. I've got all my camera gear. I've got all my equipment. Unfortunately, there are other photographers that had batteries, but that's probably one of my bigger mistakes I'll make. Double booking yourself is a huge thing. When you are a freelancer, you are trying to get every job that you can get, right? So when people say, yeah, we'll have you this, you're putting it on there, keep a schedule. Literally just this coming Saturday, I've got 2 events at the exact same time. One's a South Carolina game in Columbia, and then the other one is a Charlotte FC game with Miami coming. It's the exact same time on the exact same day. Fortunately, that is a Getty Images problem, not my problem. But as a freelancer, you're going to want to think about that, right? Because the last thing you want to do is call your client and say, hey, sorry, I can't show up. Because the next event, they're like, oh, well, this guy bailed on me, right? I'm not going to hire him for the next event. So think about your scheduling piece as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions. The
Sure.
first question would be, did you ever get burnt out, and how did you build yourself up from that strength?
Oof. Well, that is a great question, right? Burnt out. Yes. So I will say you're going to get burnout, right? And you always have to look at the big picture. Look at the goal at the end. What is it that you want to do? Have you made it yet? Probably not, right? Even at my days, I will tell you, I have not made it yet. So when you are burnt out, when you are tired, keep going. Keep that kind of prize at the end. And that's not just photography. That's literally anything in life, right? You're going to have financial problems. You're going to have this. You're going to have that. It's all part of life. You have to push through. The individuals who say, this sucks, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore, that's fine. You'll stop, but you're not going to keep going, right? I have a newborn at home, so I'm not sleeping even when I am at home, right? I am tired. I am exhausted, but I got to put food on my table. I got to provide for my family. I've got to keep going. There are going to be days. If you ever notice your sporting events, when are they? Friday nights, Saturday nights, Sunday nights sometimes. You're working super late. You got to pick. Do you want to go hang out with your friends? Do you want to go to the movies? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to work and focus on your career? So those are things that you're going to have to think about. Just the other night, I did a football game. I got home about 2 a.m. I then had to turn around, wake up the next morning, go to Pinehurst for a golf tournament. I got about 45 minutes to an hour of sleep, fed my baby really quick, and then I hopped on the road and I went. I was extremely exhausted, but I showed up. I did it. I performed. And I guarantee you all those clients will call me back for another job. So you just got to keep pushing through. And again, have fun with it, right? You're going to these sporting events. You get the best access to some of the most amazing athletes. Some of these guys are really incredible to be around. I get to hang out with Post Malone and his trailer. I get to do a lot of different things. Nobody gets to do that. So when you're tired, just pinch yourself and remember, you're hanging out with some of the biggest people in the world, which is really cool. So.
My second question was, when you first started out, how did you balance out your finances or what you needed? So when you first started out and you got that camera, when did you decide, hey, I want to upgrade to this lens? Oh, I need a camera back. I need a SD card here. How did you do it?
That's a really good question, right? When you first start out, so I worked in corporate America while I was doing photography because I really didn't think photography was going to amount to anything. So I had a 9-to-5, and that was kind of my income that was coming in, right? Now, coming out of high school, you're probably not going to work in corporate America, but you might be working at Walmart, you might work at McDonald's, you might have some little side cash. Use your photography money for photography. That does a couple things. Number one, it means that the money that you are making is going right back into your career. It's reinvesting. If you start making all that money that you're making when you're working at McDonald's, Now that's coming out of your clothing fund, right? You want to go get shoes, you want to do this, you want to do that. You know, so now you want to try to balance that money. And if you're spending all your money on photography, you will lose out on some of your personal sacrifices. So you got to decide that. If you are making money from photography, you can buy that gear. This is going to prevent you from shooting for free. Because if you keep shooting for free, you are never going to make money. Your equipment that you do have is going to get wear and tear and this and that, and you're going to have no money to replace that. So this encourages you to make sure that you charge for all the events that you're working. Sometimes it's not always financial cash, right? Charlotte Sports Foundation, they give me t-shirts, they give me all sorts of cool stuff, right? So sometimes you can get other things out of it. You know, some of the events that I'll do with them, you know, it's because I know they're going to give me more events. So I'll cut them a little bit of a deal and say, hey, you know, I'm going to do this for a lot cheaper, but you're going to give me a lot more events down the road. So you can think big picture when you're starting to charge. Don't price yourself out of a job either. Don't just walk in there and say, hey, I need 10 grand for this high school football game, because you're not going to get it, right? So you want to make sure that you're kind of understanding the market value and know your worth, right? You don't just show up to the football game and shoot the football game. You have to drive and get there. You're putting gas in your car. You got to get to the game at least 2 hours early because you got to do warm-ups and everything else. After the game, you're not just going home. You got to edit your photos. You're probably going to stop at McDonald's on your drive back home. You're doing all this other stuff. You're using all your equipment and this and that. So you're not just charging for that football game. You're charging for all the other work that you're putting into it. And that's where you can make some more money. And explain that. When you have a client and you say, hey, I'm going to bill you this much, what they see is a big number. If you start to break it down and say, well, the game is this much, your editing is going to be this much, you know, and they kind of show them how it all sums up, like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And that's how you can start to make more money. Yeah, of course. What you got?
So my question is, how do you get in contact with these big teams? Also, how long do they usually do?
You know, there's no great timeline, right? There are guys that have been shooting for 30 years and they've never made it out of shooting high school photography. And there's nothing wrong with shooting high school games. It's all about your persistency and how you want to grow. If you are doing the same thing that every other photographer is doing, you are no better than every other photographer, right? So you always got to step outside the box, kind of find different ways to do different things. Reaching out to the right person is always key, right? The first thing that I always did when I was starting out, I would reach out to Chanel and some of those other people and say, hey, I want to work for the Panthers. Do you know what I was doing? I was contacting the photographer and basically saying, I want to take your job. You know what she told me? She's like, get lost. You're not taking my job, right? So you want to make sure you're reaching out to the right person. Be cognizant of the industry as well. I had a kid. I hired him to come out and help me shoot the Myrtle Beach Bowl game. This kid then went to the executive director of the Myrtle Beach Bowl game and said, hey, how much do you pay him? I'll do it for them for less. And I looked at him and he'll never work for me ever again. But I appreciated his ambition, right? I knew he wanted that job, but he was stabbing me in the back out of my career, and I went out of my way to help him. So those are things that you want to think about when you're reaching out to people. Schools are typically going to be your athletic directors. Typically, colleges will have a director of communications. They're the ones that are kind of responsible for that. However, a school is probably not going to pay you. They'll get you the credential, but they're not going to pay you. Who needs your photos? Well, is it the local newspapers? Is there a student magazine? Is there a smaller publication that wants this content? They're the ones that are going to pay you to be there. And what they do is they will request credentials for you. I haven't reached out to requested credentials in years. Getty Images says, hey, we need you to cover this game. They reach out to the schools, the teams, whoever, right? They requested credentials. I just get the email that says, show up. And that's pretty much it. So, so definitely just reach out, email any and everybody, have your portfolio already ready, have a rate ready in mind. And my best phrase that I'll tell you, when you give somebody a rate, end your email with, don't let my rate be the end of this discussion. It's a negotiating deal, right? It's a business. Nobody's ever going to just pay you $1,000, but they might have had a budget of like $800. If you charge $1,000, they could tell you no, or you could say, well, let's negotiate, because I'd rather take $800 than no dollars at all, right? So be ready to negotiate a little bit too. Yeah.
On the negotiating side, can you chat a little bit about the difference between you approaching someone for a job and them approaching you for a job, where's your no line? Like, is there ever a point where you're like, I've reached this level, I'm not going to do this or this?
That's a good question. Me personally, there is starting to get to be a no line. Starting out, I would encourage you to never say no. You need the work, whether it's $5, whether it's $500, you need the work. You want the portfolio, you want the access, you want the relationships. Never say no. It may be somebody having a yard sale down the street. Show up and take pictures, right? It's not the most exciting thing, but you're building relationships. You should say yes to every single thing that you can get into, but make sure that there's some sort of value behind it, right? You want to make sure, is this something I can get quality content? Is this something, where I can build a relationship and get more events down the road? These are things that you need to start talking about when you say yes to these events. But again, be mindful of your schedule. There is that work-life balance, right? If you are going to show up and you're exhausted and you give about 10% of your effort and you fail at the job, you're going to hurt yourself more than if you just didn't show up at all, right? So make sure you do have that work-life balance. But then, once I get to, say, my stage, when I'm with ESPN and Getty, I have a few side clients that I have, but my loyalty lies with ESPN and with Getty. There's been times when the Charlotte Sports Foundation has asked me to show up, and I love those guys. I love working with them more than anybody else, really. But Getty Images is what gives me primarily all of my work. If I tell Getty no and work for Charlotte Sports Foundation, Getty may not bring me back for anything else. I've got a great relationship with Charlotte Sports Foundation, and they'll continue to ask me to do certain things. So, kind of balancing that relationship piece is huge. So.
And you're going to get a lot of no's. That should not discourage you.
Yes.
Sometimes, you can't take it personal because you never know what's on the other side of it. It may just be they just don't have the opportunity at the time, or the timing is just not right. It has nothing to do with you and your talent or your work. It just may not be the right timing. So that's why you keep following up. You keep sending those check-ins. You have those relationships, because you can't take, every no personal and then, okay, well, they told me no last year, so I'm never going to contact them again. No, it just probably just wasn't the right time. I'll take them again until they say yes.
That's it. Ask for feedback too. You get told no, kind of ask why. Sometimes you can figure it out yourself, but if somebody doesn't like your photos, if somebody doesn't like the content, if you did something wrong, you can learn from it. You can grow from it, right? If you ask for someone to look at your portfolio, don't ask me to look at your portfolio, because I'm not going to tell you what you did right, because you know what you did right. I'm going to tell you every single thing that you did wrong, and you're going to think I'm a jerk by the time we're done. But if you take that and grow from that, you're not going to make those same mistakes. And next thing you know, you're going to grow as a photographer. So you got to kind of take things lightly. Again, you're an artist, right? There's things that you want. There's things that you like. Find your own technique. And each one of you you're going to do fantastic, I think. So, yeah.
Awesome. My last question
Sure.
is, when you first started, how did you figure out your rates? Like, how were you, when you first started with the dog parking with your friends, and you were like, 15 pictures, this, like, how were you figuring out how to bundle your rates?
That is a tough question, right? Because you want to make money, but you don't want to price yourself out of a job, right? So what can you manage, right? Are you okay with spending 6 hours that day, going to on-site, doing the work, taking the pictures, editing afterwards, coming back home? Are you okay with doing it for $25? Perfect. Say yes, make that $25, right? But could you have charged $50 and they still would have said yes? So as you get through it, you're going to find that you're charging probably a little too less to start, but that's okay, because you need the content more than you need the money at this point. As you start going, you'll start charging a little more, and then eventually you'll start making bigger money. I have one client that I have tried to price myself out of that job so many times, and they continue to pay me, and I will go back. I don't really want to be there. For example, my first time shooting for them, I charged $150 for the entire day. It was just content that I selfishly wanted. And so I went, they paid me. They loved my work. This last time, I was like, I really don't want to do this. There's other stuff I want to do. I charged them $5,000. They paid me for 2 years in advance for each thing. So I started at 150. Now I'm charging them $5,000. Same content, same work. They're still paying it. So, but you got to, earn that piece, and you got to provide the quality content. So, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure how long you're gonna be here, but towards the end, I was gonna ask you, like, could one of us like show you a picture and you like tell us what we did wrong? Like,
Yeah.
where we're going.
Yeah. I'll be here all day. We can look at my equipment. I'll show you some of my pictures, and we'll look at your stuff for sure. So there's a lot of different places you can get it. Local, there is Cardinal Camera and Biggs Camera. They're your two local camera shops. They're pretty good. They'll have pretty much everything that you'll need there. B&H, Adorama are two really good shops where you can buy brand new stuff. They're out of New York, but you can order it online. They also have used equipment. If you buy used equipment from them, typically it's pretty good. I don't really recommend buying stuff from like Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that because you just don't know, and it's too expensive to go and buy something that doesn't work, right? MPB is another good one for used stuff. You just want to be careful. You can see the rating on a scale like 1 to 10, 10 being the best quality, 1 being the worst. So, but I typically stick with Adorama and B&H just because you build points, and I've got a credit card through them. So, Alex.
Real quick on that point, especially for you guys that are starting out, you can go like lensrentals.com will let you rent equipment. And as you get into like people paying you out to come out and do stuff, you can build in the cost of your equipment rental into what you're doing. So like as you move up and like you're getting more into using different cameras, different lenses, you kind of want to up your like physical inventory. You can build in that cost. So like if it's going to cost you $300 to rent the camera and lenses that you want, factor that in, like add that $300 on top of the rate that you're charging them, so that way you don't come out of pocket for the equipment that you're renting, and you get to use better stuff.
That's lensrental.com.
Lensrentals.com.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, right? Those are all expenses. You had to put gas in your car to get there. That client's paying you to be there, right? Put that in the rate that you're charging them. Fun fact with Lens Rentals, you can buy equipment. I bought this bad boy from Lens Rentals. I rented it, liked it, bought it, and I paid $4,000 less than what the retail value is, and it was only like 3 months old when they had it. So you can buy used gear, and it works just as good. So Biggs Camera is right here in Charlotte, and then you've got Cardinal Camera, which is kind of down in South Charlotte area. Yep.
My question is for you is, what is, in your opinion, the best camera brand to buy from them?
So this is a tough question, right? Because if you got somebody who uses Sony or Nikon, they will probably kill me. But I think Canon is one of the best. Now, I only say that because when I first started photography, I didn't know anything about photography. Went to Best Buy, they had a Black Friday deal, and I bought a Canon camera. Since then, I've continued to buy Canon lenses, Canon cameras. Now I've got so much Canon stuff, I'd be an idiot to switch to Sony or Nikon, right? But what you want to consider, right, is look at the specifications behind some of these cameras. In my opinion, Canon has some of the most lenses. Doesn't mean we are the best camera brand, but if you go to like Sony, they have a less variety of lenses. So you're kind of limited to different focal ranges that you can use with your gear. Canon just had the most. So now I could buy long range lenses like my big one. You can buy some short ones like this one, so you can get really super wide. So some brands don't offer lenses that are this small anymore, or some lenses don't have this big anymore with certain brands. So you want to look at how much they've got. And again, that goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Think long term. If you start with Sony, keep buying Sony and you'll build it. If you want to switch halfway through and go to Canon, that's a very expensive changeover to a different brand. So I like Canon, but everybody's a little different. So.
Just to piggyback off that as well, I'm a Sony guy. I learned on Sony's. I bought Sony's. I love Sony's. But the reason I bought Sony's originally was because I'm a videographer by trade, and at the time, there was a shift from DSLRs to mirrorless cameras, and the Sony mirrorless camera at the time was heads and shoulders above anything that Canon or Nikon or anybody else put out, and I needed that mirrorless aspect for what I needed to do. So we have two different opinions of which cameras are better, but we have them for different reasons because we're different professionals. So I would always, to his point, I would always do your research into, there are 1,000 sites across the internet that will tell you, hey, this camera is better for shooting photography, this camera is better for shooting videography. There are some that are right there in the middle if you're trying to explore, but to his point, it's something that you have to kind of develop on your own. We can all tell you what we like personally, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
And it goes back to knowing how to use the camera, right? One of the first couple things I did, I rented more professional equipment, and I thought, man, this thing's not doing what I wanted to do. It was not the camera's fault. It was my fault, right? I just didn't know what I was doing. So again, create your opinions based off your expertise. Yeah.
Going back to when you first started, you mentioned how you started with like taking pictures automatically and you went to manual.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, like at the beginning myself, I also used automatic a lot. So do you
Sure.
have to, like start stepping out of my comfort zone, or is there going to be times where?
Definitely encourage you to step out of your comfort zone. Now, to step out of that, right, you got to figure out what you're doing. So what you can do, take a picture on auto. When you get the picture and you're like, man, I like that picture. Open up that picture and look at the settings that it used. What was your f-stop? What was the shutter speed? What was the ISO? Okay, now switch to manual. Dial in those specific settings, and you're going to get the exact same photo. But now, maybe slow your shutter speed down a little bit. You're going to start to notice there's a little motion, but like, oh, okay, that's what that does. If you bump up your shutter speed, you'll notice that it freezes the action more, but your picture might get a little bit darker. Like, oh, well, let me bump up my ISO. And as you start to bump it up a little bit, you'll notice you're going to get more grainy pictures. If you turn it down a little bit, it'll get a little bit darker, but your picture will be a little bit more crisp and clear. So once you get like a really good setting, dial it in, and then just adjust things here and there and just see what it does. Your f-stop, see how it changes your focal distance. And you'll start to figure things out.
I think one quick point to that too, you sometimes will hear coaches say like we don't practice on game days. So like if you're starting to cover sports, ask your coach if you can go out and cover practice as well. And like that's a great time to try out different settings and stuff in a practice setting where like if you miss the moment in practice, it's nowhere near as critical as if you miss the moment in the game. And you like have all that practice time to get your settings right, figure out what's going to work. 9 times out of 10, most high school sports are going to practice on the same field and lighting that they play in. So like you can get all your settings right, learn what works, learn what doesn't in a practice setting where like there's not the pressure to capture the moment and that way you're good to go on game day.
Yeah, and take notes, right? Because different situations will mean different settings. So I've got things in my notes, and I got, hey, it's a nighttime game. I'm at this stadium. Here's what my white balance needs to be. Here's what I kind of want. Put it all in there. So when you get there, you got it all kind of set up and ready to go. Yeah.
Just curious, is the lens heavier than the game?
Honestly, not really. The old school lenses were extremely heavy. They were like a brick. They were very heavy. I'll let you pick it up later if you want. But the camera is probably about the same weight as the lens. It's mostly because the battery is kind of heavy in the camera. But every lens is a different weight. Different cameras are different sizes. Yeah. But that's where you'll buy different gear, right? So, when you've got this big old lens, you're not going to handhold this the whole game. So you'll have like a monopod. And this way it holds the camera, and then all you got to do is kind of focus it, and you'll be good to go. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to piggyback off what you said. You're in Tremont? I would say I'd also recommend going on TikTok because for me, if there's something I'm lost on, like if I'm taking a headshot, if I'm going to go indoors, I'll go on TikTok and I'll search up headshot settings for whatever camera. I have a Sony a6400, so I'll put that in. I'll be like, what settings, and they'll give you like kind of like a cheat sheet on what f-stop, what shutter speed, what ISO to have it on, and then you can kind of use those, put them in your notes, and keep those with you for everywhere you go, so you'll remember how to do it and just practice it.
Actually, I love that you said that. So I did something the other day. I took one of my own pictures, and I put it into ChatGPT, and I just said, what kind of camera settings do I need to get this picture? It put up my exact camera settings. It showed me the exact white balance. It showed me what shutter speed I would need, positioning. It told me more than what I actually knew I even did through ChatGPT. So again, remember, it's AI. Sometimes it's not always the most reliable, but it gives you a pretty good starting point. It's getting better every day.
Do y'all high schools play each other?
Yes.
Do y'all see each other at the games?
It will.
It sounds like you guys need to be talking to each other at the games and helping each other with your different camera settings and stuff, because it sounds like a lot of y'all are shooting in the same spaces. So that's why I wanted you guys to learn each other. I'm glad you called her by her name, because when you see her at a game, maybe y'all can connect and y'all can trade camera settings and you can talk and have these relationships and networking. So
We play each other on Halloween.
Oh, there you go. I'll give you one more thing that I was coaching some students on over at App State. I went up there to shoot a football game, and they were all sitting next to me, all 4 of them. We all got the exact same picture, right? So you always want to think about what can you do different than everybody else. Now, there's pictures that you need to get, but then there's a way you can differentiate yourself from every other person that's there. If all 4 of you are shooting for the same student newspaper or whatever, you don't want to have all 4 the same picture, right? If that play comes to you, great, you all 4 get that same picture. But if there's a fumble and they run it all the way down to the other end zone, guess what? All 4 of you are down here, you all miss that picture, right? So sometimes you have to sacrifice your content for the team content. I'm sure Alex will tell you that you will notice that when you go to a Panthers game or anywhere else, they have people all over the field, regardless of where the action is. So when content comes to you, you are ready to go, right? So again, don't group up into one corner of the end zone. Spread out all over the field, because from a content perspective as a whole, you're going to have a killer game. But if you're all in the same spot, you all get the exact same stuff. So you either did great or maybe you didn't. So that's all I've got. I think I'm probably way over time. I don't want to cut into Will's stuff, but
Won't be cutting into anything. You even worry about it. Keep talking.
yeah. Well, I'm here all day. Feel free to ask me questions. We can come by later and look at some of the gear.